Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Trey Smith here. Listen, guys, first off, I want to welcome you to the event. This is a really big event for us, the biggest product we've ever created, the most advanced software we've ever made before, and I'm excited to share that with you guys. So, as you probably know already, we're going to be showing you guys tonight how to create 3D games without coding. It's never been done before, and as you'll see, we drew inspiration from some really crazy areas, pretty much everywhere except other game development software products out there. As you guys know, we like to do stuff in a little bit of a different way, and I can't wait to show you what we came up with. It's pretty interesting. But first off, I want to say thanks to all the boxers out there. You guys have been amazing. You've created the most insane stuff in the past 12 months, the whole time, but we've just seen you guys push Buildbox 2.0, not to the limits, beyond the limits. We don't even know how you're doing some of this stuff, which is pretty amazing. It's also given us a ton of inspiration on where Buildbox is going to go and how to make sure you guys don't hit limitations. So thank you guys for constantly pushing and creating and inspiring us. It's been really awesome. Also, Buildbox itself, our community and our customers, they've doubled in the past 12 months alone. So thank you guys for supporting us. We really appreciate it. If you guys don't know me, my name is Trey Smith. I'm CEO at Buildbox. We're a game development software company in Silicon Valley. And tonight we do have a very special event. I think you guys know this by now, but we're going to be showing off Buildbox 3.0 for the first time. So really excited about that, and we're going to show you guys everything. But first, I want to mention something interesting. This recently happened, and it's really odd to me because no one's mentioned this to me on email. I haven't seen anyone email support about this or social media. And here's what it is. Hyper casual, guys, has finally broken into the mainstream in a really, really big way. I mean, like bigger than any other game type out there. If you guys haven't seen this in the news, I'll show you a couple quick articles. Now, at the beginning of the year, PocketGamer.biz, I have to give it to these guys. They kind of called this. They said charting the rise of hyper-casual mobile games. That was in January. Then in April, AppLovin made this post about hyper-casual games will lead a shakeup at the top of the app charts in 2018. I'll show you in a second. Boy, they really called that one. And then here, this is in June 2018, June 10th. Hyper-casual is mobile games' new dominant force. And this is on VentureBeat. And if you guys haven't seen it in the news, I know like me, you're on the App Store, and this is probably even crazier. The top charts used to be all sorts of different types of games up there. But look at this, guys. It's all hyper-casual now. I mean, how crazy is that? Look at all the minimal, simple icons. Hyper-casual's just completely taken over. In fact, out of the top 10 games, only one was not a hyper-casual game, and it's freaking Fortnite. Even PUBG was not in the top 10. So we've seen these games just come from this small, minimal niche to completely taking over the App Store. And I gotta say, about time. As many of you know, we've been at the forefront of hyper-casual since it started. In fact, the first game ever made with Buildbox was called Phases. And Phases was one of the first hyper-casual games ever created, one of the first few ever made. Now, if you're curious what the first hyper-casual game ever was, well, we've actually had a lot of discussions about this. And yes, this is actually the type of stuff we talk about. And we came to the conclusion that the first hyper-casual game ever created was Ketchup's The Line. I mean, this game really has it all. It's got this minimal design, which goes great for really wide demographics, and that's an important part of hyper-casual. It is hyper, it's casual, it's easy to learn, and anyone can play it. You want to try to beat your friend's high score, it's very viral, but it's also hyper. It moves quickly, it's kind of frustrating, and those are some of the subtle differences between casual and hyper-casual. Also, since I'm a big fan of this game, it was actually the #1 app in the App Store when I was making Phases. You could probably see the inspiration between Phases and The Line. So Ketchup invented the hyper-casual craze as we know it. And back when we created Buildbox 1.0, our goal was to be the game maker for the minimal market. That's what we called hyper-casual back then. And now this little market has finally grown really, really big. It's spawned into a massive business that has turned many developers that we know into millionaires, and that's something we were not expecting. And now hyper-casual companies are getting bought and funded for hundreds of millions of dollars. If you guys have seen this, another one I haven't heard a lot of people talking about, but Zynga just paid $250 million for hyper-casual developer Gram Games. They made 1010. And this one I did hear about. Voodoo, the biggest publisher out there right now with Ketchup at the top of the store, they secured a $200 million investment from Goldman Sachs. Now, let me tell you why this is interesting, guys. Typically, guys, when a VC invests in your company, they're going to give anywhere between 2%, 10%, 15%, maybe at the tops 20%, all right? Even at 20%, that puts Voodoo's valuation at $1 billion. And I'm going to be honest with you, that's definitely something we were not expecting from this really small market of minimal games a few years ago. But now the revenue from these simple games is rivaling social games, and it's all happening right now on your phone, right this very second. And this puts Buildbox in a very interesting position because our software has become synonymous with these types of games. As you guys probably know, our customers, they've made over 150 hit hyper-casual games with Buildbox. Now, this is really interesting because hyper-casual is now evolving. There are new elements at play, like 3D, real logic, progression, retention, and collaboration. This and more will be required for our customers to dominate not only the hyper-casual landscape, but the even bigger indie game landscape beyond. And as you'll see tonight, we have figured it out, and I must say, it's absolutely glorious. So here's some of the new features in Buildbox 3.0 that I'll be showing you tonight. First off, of course, 3D. You'll be able to create 3D for the first time ever in drag and drop without coding. And if you want to take it up a notch, you can use visual nodes. And guys, this is so cool. Nodes are like Components 2.0. It lets you create full games in a mind map atmosphere. And this is not glorified scripting. If you've seen nodes in other complex software, it's not like that. Like, I can do this, and I'm not a programmer, and I love using these nodes. We have nodes for things like jump and hop. It's really, really cool. Then for the people who do know how to code, we do have advanced full-featured scripting. We even take this a step further. People who know how to script inside a Buildbox can actually create nodes and share with the community. We've actually made everything very easily to share. So you can share elements with friends and collaborators, as you'll see soon. Everything from nodes to actual assets to smart assets and more. And we've also made it so you can now do completely limitless creation. We've made a really big API, as you'll see, so the options are truly limitless with Buildbox 3. And we've done all of this, but it's actually easier to use than Buildbox 2. So that sounds impossible, right? And honestly, it was super tough to do. This was the goal since the beginning when we started 3 years ago. We knew we wanted to create 3D software and really do something amazing here, but we knew we could not make it more complicated. That would alienate a lot of the people that made Buildbox what it is today. And it took us a very long time to nail this down. And I think it's why you haven't seen 3D software that's drag and drop before. So before I show it off, I want to explain how we solved the biggest problem, vastly opening up the software while actually making it easier to use. So to do this, we got inspiration from the strangest source. And like always, it wasn't other game development software. We really don't pay attention to those guys. It actually wasn't software that inspired us to solve this problem at all. It was a movie. And not just any movie, but a really fantastic movie. It was actually Inception. Now, if you know, this was a bit of a complex movie, it came out a few years ago. So if you forgot, here's the basic premise here of Inception. So basically, you got these guys, and they hack people through dreams. And to hack them more, they go deeper into dreams. In other words, they dream inside of a dream. And the more that they dream inside of a dream, the deeper they can hack people. They do this multiple times, and they go into deeper dream levels. And as you can imagine, the deeper they go, the weirder it gets. And that's what we did with Buildbox 3. See, inside of Buildbox 3.0, you'll find 3 different levels of game creation. It starts off from easy and goes on to advanced. So let me show you. Here's how you're going to be creating inside of Buildbox 3. Right at the very top, on the surface, we have level 1. And this is something totally new to Buildbox. It's called Smart Assets, and it's so new that even our alpha testers of Buildbox 3D do not know about this feature. It also comes with something really cool called the Asset Library that I'll talk about later on this event. With smart assets, you're going to be able to build games, really in-depth games. Even if you're a programmer, you might not want to use the other functions because you're going to be able to make really cool stuff very easily. This has not been done in any other game development platform. It's something we invented, and I can't wait to show you. It's fun, it's easy, and it's super fast to build really cool games. Now, if you do want more control, you can go to level 2, and this is where I still think a lot of people are going to hang out. That's in the node section. And this is one more level deep down into the dream sequence, and it lets you have full control over all of the aspects of your character and objects. You can do really amazing things, create real logic and more without coding. And the way that we did nodes is unlike any other software out there. It's not glorified programming with bubbles. It's actually super simple to use, and it's more like telling a story. And of course, we're going to walk through that as well. Now, for the coders and the programmers out there, the guys who already know how to do scripting, we do have a full-fledged scripting engine inside of Buildbox 3. People said it would never happen. I think I probably said that myself, but it did. And we decided to use JavaScript for this. We have a full API that lets you access everything under the hood. While you'll be able to do 99% of what you want with nodes and smart assets, for that extra 1%, for that full control, we do have options for scripting. Now, this is what's interesting. Is even if you're not a programmer, even if you're not a developer, scripting is going to be super important for you inside of Buildbox 3. Let me explain why. So at the very lowest level, all the way deep into level 3 of our dream sequence, we have scripting. It's the most complex part of Buildbox 3 that 90% of the users aren't going to ever touch. But what is it? What does scripting actually do? Well, you use scripting to make nodes. Now, you use nodes to make smart assets. So as you can see, all of this works together. Because let's say that there's a game you always wanted to make. And you know what? Nick and I, the Buildbox team here, we just never thought about that gameplay type before. And you email support and we say, oh man, we never wrote a node for that. But guess what? We can write one super fast for you. Here you go. Put this in your game. As you'll see, all this is super easy to share. And you will be able to make that gameplay type. Let's say that Ketchup or Voodoo, they release a game that just takes over the App Store. It's super popular, and it's something that you can create with nodes, but it's a little bit more complex than some of the simpler gameplay style. Well, someone on the forum might connect all the nodes together and create a smart asset, share it with the community. These 3 elements of game creation are making Buildbox into something way more than just a piece of game development software. It's becoming a platform. It's becoming something that's going to let the community and anyone who's involved in Buildbox expand the software itself. It's going to be pretty amazing. And while we do have complex ways to build games, what's really awesome is on the surface, Buildbox 3 is actually easier than Buildbox 2. If you choose to only go to level 1, if you choose to just play around with smart assets and the asset library, which I'll show you soon. But just like Inception, the deeper you go, the weirder it gets. So instead of explaining what smart assets, nodes, and scripting inside of Buildbox is, how about I just show you? Introducing Buildbox 3.0 beta. And as I believe everyone now knows, our first version of Buildbox with true 3D game development built inside. So first off, I want to thank all of the alpha users who have been helping us test this over the past 6 months and the whole community for their excitement around this project. It's something we've been working on for years, and it's a vision we had for Buildbox since the very beginning. First, I'm going to show you a quick walkthrough of 3D inside of Buildbox, and then we'll take a closer look at the 3 levels of creating. So this is Buildbox 3.0. And as you can see, we have a brand new welcome screen. This is something that Nick has wanted to do for a long time. It now takes up the whole entire front of Buildbox. And you'll notice what was previously called Creator is now called New Game, and it's right here. There's no more selecting options. You just double click to open up any of these presets. We also have tutorials and updates. At the bottom here, we have latest news. And then on the right-hand side, we have our open recents. Now, in a few minutes, I'm going to walk you through some of these presets, and they are super cool. There's a lot of really dynamic ones, all sorts of different style of gameplay here. But for now, I first want to open up this game called Outrun. It's one that me and Nick have been working on, and I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of Buildbox inside of this file. So I just double click it to open. All right, guys, so here's Buildbox 3, and you're going to notice it's very familiar. to Buildbox 2. The layout is the same. Of course, we have a really big new feature right here in the middle, which is an actual 3D world. I'm going to show you guys how to navigate that. But first, let's go ahead and start here on the left-hand side. You're going to see something new up here. This is interesting. We haven't had this before. It's a navigation bar. We can go back to the main menu. Of course, we can double click to go into the 3D world. And then also, so we'll talk about later, we can double click and go deeper into assets and use this navigation bar to go back. Now on the left-hand side, we have our assets. We have an asset library that we'll talk about soon. We have characters and objects. You'll notice we have some omissions here. For example, we don't have coins and we don't have power-ups. Well, those things are actually just assets now. We've actually consolidated, made things a little bit simpler over here on the asset bar. Right here, we have the same outliner that we had before. You can move things around, change the layer order, etc. Then here, obviously the star of the show, we have full 3D. So moving around in the 3D space is really just like Buildbox 2, just with another dimension. So first off, we hold down the space bar and then we can move around. All right, you can see us moving right around this car here. Now, I'm using the left click to move around, but if I use the right click, we can actually change the rotation of the camera, and then we can zoom with the mouse wheel. So that way it's really easy to move around and get to a specific point. Like if we wanted to look right at this wheel, zoom right in there and rotate to see what it looks like. Now let's go back over here and look at this wheel. If you want to select an object, just like in Buildbox 2, you simply click on it. Now you can see we have this yellow box around the wheel. Now let's say I wanted to duplicate that wheel. Just like with Buildbox 2, we can use the WASD keys to duplicate as many as we want, and in multiple directions. Now let's say you want to add more objects to your game. Well, first off, you can download OBJ files off the internet, places like poly.google.com, and just drop them right into the software. Just like in Buildbox 2, we can select these objects on the left-hand side right here in the asset bar, and then change various options for it. For this example, I think I want to change the color. As I select a color from the wheel, we can see it change in real time. I think I kind of like this blue for the gems. Now I can select OK, and we have more options here like mesh and texture and more, but I think these are fine for now. I can easily move these around or change the rotation, or if I want to, the scale. And of course, if I have an object here on the left-hand side, like this cube that I want to bring over, I just drag it and drop it. And now I can also change its position, rotation, and scale. Now, some of the more savvy Buildbox users might have noticed that there's no characters up here. You also might have noticed that there's no drop wheel. So how do we designate if an object inside of the game is a character, an enemy, etc.? Well, now it's really simple. Let's say I wanted this triangle to be my character. I just drag it and drop it into characters. And it will have some other default behaviors like the camera following the character automatically. But the truth is, with Buildbox 3, there are so many more options as you'll see when we get down to the node level. So some people might not even have a character in a game if they want to manually configure things themselves. Alright, so there are two very important things we haven't talked about yet. And that's these two guys right here. We have the sun and the camera. Now, in order to show you this, I think it's time to start previewing this game. So I'm just going to click on the play button here, and we're going to see what it looks like. Alright, so here's our game. I'm going to zoom in a second and show you this a little bit closer, but it looks pretty cool. Definitely has that Outrun feel, a little bit of a retro feeling, cyberpunk thing going on here, which is pretty fun. Now down here, I'm going to choose this fourth scene, and you'll notice that there's no obstacles in the way. This is so I don't die while I'm showing you guys how this works a little bit closer. So I'll go ahead and solo this scene with the S button, just like we would do in previous versions. Now I'm going to go back to the start scene here, and then we're going to hit play. Alright guys, so now I'm going to move this to the right side. I'm going to show you something cool. This might be one of my favorite features for sure of Buildbox 3. There's a camera button right here. When I click on that, it's showing the viewpoint right here in preview, live inside of the scene editor. Even if we didn't have preview up, we can actually see exactly what this game's going to look like when you play it on a device. Now I can zoom in and out in real time, and notice it's immediately zooming in and out of preview. I can see what this game is going to be like if I wanted to make it a first-person game. Just like that, instantly see what it's like. Then of course I could zoom out and see what it's going to look like being really far off. Or if we want to put the character in the back there, something like that. Of We could take off the fog easily as well, make it so you can see further. Now we could see an isometric game like this, or if we just wanted to try something totally different, what it would be like playing the game from the front. So this is something I'm really excited about. And when you're doing all of this, it moves in real time. It's actually all happening while you're previewing your game. And then while we're looking at this was something I showed on Twitter, and people had a good time with this. If you'll notice that when you're moving this character, it's actually on a 4-point suspension. It's leaning into the turns. That was all done with nodes. Really cool stuff there. So for the people who are worried that Buildbox 3 would be only hyper-casual games, as you can see, you can do a whole lot more. Now, if we choose the camera right here from the asset bar or click it in the scene editor, we're going to see a lot of different options in the option bar. We can do really cool projection like perspective or orthogonal. Let's see how that makes this look different. Okay, interesting. Visually, we have a very different style game here with this new projection style. So that could be fun as well. Back on the options bar, we can choose if the camera is going to follow the character, nothing at all, a game path, or a specific object that we define. We also have a lot more options like follow force, field of view, rotation follow, and more to give you a lot of control on how your game looks and feels. So there's a lot more options here, but there's one more important one I want to make sure we go over, and that's this right here. It's the sun. You can select the sun by clicking on it or choosing it in the outliner. And you'll see, just like every other asset inside a Buildbox, we have some special options we can change. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit preview, and then we can change how the sun looks in real time. Okay, great. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the color of the sun. Right now it's just a white light. But we can make this yellow, green, super saturated, desaturated, and really have a cool effect on the game. And the truth is, I think this kind of looks neat, going with one of these kind of purple or pink looks, even if it's just a little bit, but for now, we'll go ahead and just keep it white. Now also, we can select the sun and then rotate it to really shift the shadows around, make long shadows or short shadows and more. We can have the shadows be from a different angle completely. You can see them moving both in the preview and also the scene editor. We can change the scale and do some pretty cool stuff with the sun. So guys, that's the basics of moving around in 3D inside of Buildbox. We're just scratching the surface. We haven't even got to the 3 different creation styles, starting with smart assets that I'll show you in a second. But before we leave here, I do want to mention a few things that I know people will probably ask about. The most important one is this button right here. This is collision shapes. And now you can actually edit all the collision shapes for everything in your scene at one time. I know this is going to be something that pro users are going to like a lot. No more clicking individually to try to figure out how things fit together. It's all going to be accessible and changeable at once. Also, we now have nested objects. You can finally put an object with another object instead of just making it a connection, and these will move together. And then here, we have our multiple selector. Using this, you can highlight, move around, and shift multiple things at once. So that's the basics. And as you can see, the layout is very similar to previous versions of Buildbox, but we've added a lot of new features revolved around 3 dimensions. And as you'll also notice, it's very different than all other game development software. And of course, this is just the beginning. What we're going to be showing you guys next has never been done before in any software. So now it's time to dive in and talk about the 3 new ways that you can create games inside of Buildbox. Let's take each one of these and dive deeper into the software. We're going to start with one that not even our alpha users knew about. And this one alone will change the way you create games. You're now entering level 1, Smart Assets. All right, guys, so we're back here at the welcome screen inside of Buildbox 3.0 beta, and I'm going to go ahead and choose one of these presets. And we have some really unique ones, like this one where you actually draw a path for the character and it opens doors. We have a space buggy one, which is like a racing game, similar to the Outrun game you saw earlier, pool, and more. But I think I'll go with this float game. It's super fun, and there's a lot we can add to it. So I double-click this, and now I'm in the mind map. And as you can see, this is going to be very familiar. We have a start scene, a 3D world, and then of course a user interface for it. Now, when you select one of these, you do have your options on the right-hand side, including a few new ones for 3D, like turning the fog off and on, or changing the background color. So now I'm just going to double click on the 3D world to open it. All right, guys, so here's our game. We can just hit play and check this out. Really cool looking game. I like the graphics. It's super fun. Has this helicopter style gameplay, cool explosion effect there. And definitely something that you would see at the top of the App Store, that style of game. But what we're going to do now is add a few things to this game using a special new feature inside of Buildbox. So over here on the left-hand side, we have our asset library. Now, this isn't called an asset store because you don't buy anything in here. Everything in here is for free, okay? So I'm going to click on it, and you'll see it opens up a whole entire new section here inside of Buildbox. It takes up the whole entire scene editor, and we have cubes and cones and cylinders and all these rudimentary basic shapes that you can pull into Buildbox and into your game. Guys, this means you do not have to go hire a graphic artist. You don't have to learn how to create 3D models. We're going to be adding a lot to this. This is just the first ones to come in here. As you'll learn later on, we're actually going to be adding content to Buildbox on a weekly basis. We're really excited about that. All right, so let's say we want to pull in this cone. We just drag it and drop it right into the software. Then we go ahead and close this, and then we can just drag it and drop it right into the scene editor. So now we could make this right here an enemy, and then of course we could clone these out, have a few of them here, and then have that be something that you want to make sure you avoid, maybe not hitting the bottom of the level here or something like that, right? So pretty cool, but we can actually do something even better here. I'm going back to the asset library, and you'll see we have two tabs. We have our shapes, which are what you just saw. Then we have assets. All right, guys, so this is the big new feature that no one knew about, even the alpha users, and it's one we're extremely excited about because this lets you take a preset and create something totally unique very easily without having to code, without even using nodes. You can make some really dramatic changes as you're about to see. So we have this helicopter style game. Well, we could add points to it and coins. And these aren't just normal assets. They actually have brains and logic behind them. We could add a new character like a flap character. And you can see there's a preview for each of these and a quick description as well. And then you can add it to the library, or if you want, you can just drag it and drop it over. You can see it's downloading, and that's because all of these are hosted on our server. That way we're not clogging up your software. You only download what you need, and then we cache it so it's there for you in the future. And of course that means that we can do all of this over the air. You don't have to update Buildbox for us to be able to add new content to your software. Now, just as a quick fun one, we can throw this in here and actually have two characters at one time. All right, it's probably not going to work very well, but we'll go ahead and try it out just for fun. All right, so here we go. We have two characters and they're literally bumping into each other. So that's not going to be a great game, but it's still cool that we can do that. And actually, we don't want to see flap. I think we've all flapped enough at this point. So let's do something totally unique. I'm going to take this deep fly, and this is a really interesting one. It lets you control the character by moving it up, down, left, and right like a spaceship. Now I'm going to drag and drop this right into the asset bar. While we're here, we might as well grab a few more. Right here you can see we have a position cube. These cubes move as a character gets closer. We also have a rotation cube, and these rotate as the character gets closer, and then we have a scale cube. And as you can see, these scale as a character gets closer. I'm going to go ahead and drag all of these over into the objects section. And now we have some pretty cool objects here that we can play around with in our new game. So I'm going to go ahead and exit the asset library, and I'll go ahead and delete this original character as well. And here's where things get fun. In order not to bore you guys, I'm going to go into bullet time. And this is only a few minutes just sped up here. And what I'm doing is removing the background. I'm widening all of these platforms, and then I'm duplicating them a little bit. And we're going to make this a totally unique game using this new deep fly character. All right, guys, so as you can see, I just edited a few of these scenes here and just added some cool kind of geometric shapes. I actually did not add anything new to it. It's all stuff that I just had already inside the previous preset. So what I'm going to do is grab this deep fly character and just drop him in here. Now, he looks a little bit weird to me, so I'm going to go ahead and flatten him out a little bit. And we'll make him a little bit skinny. I think that will be kind of interesting. We could just turn him around, just literally rotate him, but I think it'll be kind of cool like this. We'll try it out and see what that looks like. Now, there's one thing I want to do with this game, and the cool thing is we had this viewpoint about right here on the previous game. Yeah, right there. Now, what I want to do is make this more of a first-person style game. We're going to zoom in and get closer to the character a little bit like this. And I'll tell you what else I want to do. I'm going to go to the mind map here, and I want to make sure we have fog turned on. Then I'm going to play around with the background color. I think I'm going to go with more of a very light, still blue. Just like that. That's good. Hit OK. All right, so very different looking game already. I'm going to hit play. And now it looks nothing like the preset, right? This is a 3D style avoidance spaceship game where we're weaving in and out of objects and trying not to die. Pretty cool game. All right, so we're going to add more to this though. All right, let's go into bullet time now. I'm going to change the background color and add in these smart assets that we put in the asset bar. All right, so now we have a little bit more going on in this game, and I'm going to take this opportunity to go ahead and try to change it a little bit more. We're going to try to make this an actual first-person game as I deleted some of the objects that were in the way. Now let's go ahead and hit the play button and see what it looks like. All right, so first off, I really like this first-person viewpoint. It reminds me of Star Fox 64 a little bit on Nintendo 64. And this is cool. This is a challenging game. It's definitely unique, and the smart assets have added a cool little feel to the game. So pretty neat. Now, our more advanced users might have noticed that all these objects in the scene editor were moving around a little bit differently. Let me explain why. So I'm going to go back to the start scene here. So if you remember, this opens just like a door. Well, this is a rotation cube we can see right there. And when we select it inside of the scene editor, we can see options we can change just for this single object that is inside this start scene. It will not affect any of the other objects we have in our game. Now, we know about the basics like position, rotation, and scale, but we can also change the end rotation and distance. Let me explain what that means. First off, the distance is set to 700, and the distance inside of Buildbox 3, just like previous versions, is our own unit of measurement. Think of it as like feet or meters. Now, when the character gets within 700 distance of the object, it's going to start rotating, and the end rotation is going to be 0 degrees on the X, 90 degrees on the Y, and 0 degrees on the Z-axis. So it's only going to shift 90 degrees on the Y. So again, with that set, as this character gets about here, we're going to see that door open. Let's check it out. And there we go. Okay, pretty cool. So for my last example of smart assets, I'm going to go back out to the welcome screen. Now we're going to choose a totally different style of game to show you guys these next examples, and let's go with draw because this is super cool. All right, so this is a very unique preset, something you definitely could not do in previous versions of Buildbox. It's more of an adventure style game instead of an action style game. And it's a funny little story behind this. This is something that Nick made because he was curious if we could do a drawing style game. This is something obviously very out of the Buildbox world previously, and he was curious if he could build nodes and presets that did this, and as you can see, he did. And not only that, we turn this into a really cool preset where you collect a key to open this door. So as you can see, we're going to get this key and then the door opens and we can proceed to the next level. And also notice how smooth the camera is. I don't know if you saw that cool little animation when I reset as well, where he pops out. I thought that was cool with those little particles as well. All right, so let's check out a couple more from the asset library and then we'll check out nodes. So I'm going to first grab this flip guy over here. We'll drag and drop him into the character section, and then a sticky sphere as well. I really like this one. It's pretty neat. And then a roto cube. That's what we're going to stick these spheres to. So I'll drag that over as well. All right, great. Let's go ahead and close out the asset library, and we'll start by dragging and dropping this flip guy over here, and I'll move him in position. We'll scale him real quick, and let's see what that looks like. So here we have two characters again who can actually interact with each other if we want, and could definitely make some pretty cool puzzles from that. Now the last assets I want to show you are the roto cube, and all this does is just rotate when a character gets close to it, and also a sticky sphere. And this is going to stick to the cube. So we're going to make sure this is lined up. Then we're going to bring this way up in the air, and we'll be able to watch it fall and stick to the cube. But first we want to add some properties to this cube. So I'm going to say when the character gets within a distance of 500, which will be immediate in our case, since the character's right next to it, and we'll make the cube rotate at a speed of 150, 130, and we'll say 94. Now let's preview and see what happens. All right, so there we go. The ball falls down, attaches to the cube, and is rotating, and we could do some really cool stuff using this in a puzzle setting. Maybe make this sticky ball a key, and then you activate the rotation so you can get the key when you get to a certain point in the level. So that's smart assets. And as you'll see, we can create smart assets ourselves and then just right-click them and export them to share them with friends. And we'll be updating these smart assets on a continuous basis without you having to actually update the software. We're really excited about the asset library, all of the different assets we have inside, and of course the new presets as well. Together, they really let you create in-depth games in a 3D environment without being difficult to use. So that's how you use smart assets and the asset library inside of Buildbox 3. And while it's pretty amazing, many of you will crave more control. And editing options is great, but what about inventing options? And that's what the next level is for. For this, we'll need to dive even deeper into the dream state to reach level 2, which is nodes. All right, guys, so now we're going to talk about how to build with nodes. And if you were curious how to get into the node map, I'm going to show you now. It's actually pretty easy and very natural. So we're here at the preset section of the welcome screen. Now, how do I choose a preset? Well, I find one I like the bounce one here, and then I just double click it. Now, this takes me into the game mind map. Well, how do I go into the world? Well, I just find the world I want, and then I double click it. And then how do we go into nodes? Well, once again, we traverse deeper, we find the asset, and then we just double click it. And as you'll learn very soon, if you want to go even deeper, you find the node and you double click it. And as I mentioned earlier, this is why we have the Inception tie-in. This was the whole idea behind it, was to double click, go deeper into the software, depending on how much control you need or want. All right, so now let's walk through the node map. Now, this is really fun stuff. It is definitely more advanced. If some of this intimidates you, do not worry. It's something you can slowly step into, especially with the amount of smart assets and presets that we have coming. It's going to be a lot. So in this node map that we're looking at now, it's for the character. You can see right here, it's the actor. If we have multiple node maps up, we can just click and go through them each, as we'll do later. Now, first I'm going to hit the play button here so you can see what we're dealing with. And it's just a simple yellow ball that moves forward forever. And he's also can go back and forth, left and right, and that is it. All right, so this represents exactly what you saw. We always start in the node map with the start node. This is just like the mind map, right? Your whole game starts with the start node. Here, this character starts with the start node. Now, if you select this, you can choose some core options for this character, like a collision shape, physics, the type of physics, friction, bounce, density, position factor, and rotation factor. Now, some of these are more advanced than other ones. Position factor simply says, can this character move on the X, Y, and Z? If we wanted to make him just go left and right and not forward and back at all, then all we would have to do is change these to 0. His position would not be able to move anywhere but on this X, left and right. But we don't want to do that for this game because we want him to move forward or he would just stay still. Rotation factor is the same exact thing, but for rotation, can this character rotate left and right? He's a ball. It doesn't matter, but we have it set so anyway. We'll, of course, have full documentation as we get closer to release on every single feature, node, and option inside of here. Now, once we go start, we split into 4 directions immediately. All of these happen at once. This first one up top here is move. And we can see that we're going to move on the z-axis, which is going to make him move forward at a speed of negative 11.77. Then right below that, we have touch move. It simply says that we can control this character and move him on the x-axis, so only left and right. He's, of course, moving forward automatically because of the first move node. Now, this next node is bounce. And this simply states he's not going to bounce at all on the X. That means he's not going to bounce left and right. He's only going to bounce up and down, which is on the Y. He's going to do that at a force of 10. Then finally down here, we have the 3D model. This simply shows what color he is, the mesh, which means the shape of the character, material, cast shadow, etc. So this is one of the simpler node setups, right? But what about this platform that keeps popping up over and over? How is that set up? Let's go back to the 3D world and double click the cube asset. So this one's a little bit more complex, but not too much. We still start with the start here, but you'll notice that it's not a physics object. And then of course down here we have a 3D model, which is going to be a cube in the color purple. And then we have a new node here called if collide. And just like you would think, this makes something happen if something collides with it. In this case, it's going to set the color to this hex color right here. And as you'll hear later, this is definitely beta. Eventually we will have a color picker there. And also it's going to move the cube upwards at a speed of 10. Now, if you're wondering why the cube doesn't keep going up forever, it's because it's only active while if collide is active. That means it's only moving up at a speed of 10 while it's actually touching the cube. So I want to add a new node to this. I want a cool sound effect every time I touch one of these platforms. It's really simple to do. I'm going to go over here to content and I'm going to grab a sound. I'm just going to drag and drop it here, and I only want this sound to activate if the character collides with the platform. Now I'm going to click on this sound and then drag and drop my MP3 right here. All right, so as you can see, now we officially have a sound that I made with my mouth in the game. If that sounds familiar, that's because I've made a lot of these with my mouth and put them in games over the years. All right, so easy peasy. Let's do some other stuff though. Let's do something cool. This is fun, right? Let's go over here to movement and let's grab a rotation. And you know what? Let's do this. Let's just have it rotate all the time. And we're gonna rotate the Y right here by 15. And let's see if this works. All right, now we can see we're slowly rotating. As we're moving down, that works fine. But what if we want more control over this rotation? So for example, what if we only want to rotate during a certain instance? Or what if we want to do something really cool? Check this out. I'm going to pull over this action here. This is a scale animation. All right, now I'm going to activate this so you can see it. All right, now we can see that the end scale right here is 2, 2, 2. That means it's going to be twice as big. It's going to take 1 second. That's the speed. So we can count to 1 and we can see those things pop up. All right, now what if we can do something a little bit funky here? What I would like to happen is to have these rotate all the time, but as soon as you land on one, it actually stops rotating and shrinks down and disappears using this scale animation. So I want it to rotate at the beginning, but as soon as we touch it, I want it to stop rotating and immediately shrink. Here's how you do it. So we're gonna have to pull out the big boys now. We're gonna have to pull out something in the advanced section. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't hang out a lot in the advanced. This is like where Nick and all the cool guys, right? This is where the developers hang out. All right, I hang out up here in content. All right, so, but I'm gonna go here now because I want to show you guys this. Nick actually showed me this. And listen, if you don't code, if you're like me and you don't code, it's really not that complicated. It's pretty cool actually. So this is called a state machine. All right, you can hit this plus sign and you can make as many states as you want. We're just gonna have two. One's gonna be for rotate, one's for scale. Now we wanna start with rotate. So how do you think we set this up? Well, we're gonna have it right when we start. It's gonna load state one. State one is going to enable rotate. So I can hit play right now and there we go. It's rotating, right? And that looks great. All right, so now state two is going to load the scale animation, right? But remember what I said, I want it to only happen after we collide with it, after we land on it. So of course, we're gonna go to this if collide, we're gonna slap that right there, and here's how this is going to work. I'm gonna walk you through this now before we hit play, then it's gonna be amazing. So right when we start, the platform shows up on the screen, we gotta load the 3D model. We're gonna be looking for any collisions, and then we're gonna have this state machine. State one is gonna have it automatically rotate. State two won't be activated until we have a collision. So here's what all happens when we have a collision. First, it's gonna play the sound of me doing a weird mouth noise. It's also going to move and do a little pop-up. If you remember it doing that, just popping up a little bit, and then it's gonna change the color, and then it's gonna also load state two, which is scale animation. Now, here's the cool thing about the state machine. When it loads state two, it's gonna kill all other states automatically. So automatically rotate is going to be killed. And if anyone's having a hard time with this, guys, it's a switch. And we're gonna probably rename this to switch, just like you would have on an old audio receiver and you would choose like AM and FM and switch it. That's exactly what this does. Okay, so once again, we can click on rotate and we can look over here and see the speed is gonna be moving at 15. You know what, let's boost this up a little bit so we can really tell when it stops. Also scale animation, almost forgot that. So this is really important. Over here, the options for this have end scale. Right now it's 2, 2, 2. That means everything's gonna double, right? It's gonna go from 1 to 2. We want it to be 0 because we want this to completely go away. 0, 0, 0, and a speed of 1 should be fine, all right? We can always increase that or decrease it if we need to. So now, in theory, it should work. Let's see what happens. All right, looks perfect. Look at that. It's rotating, and the second we touch it, it stops rotating, and it even pops up a little bit because we have the move, and then shrinks. That's a pretty cool, professional-looking effect. Much better than my cheap way of doing it a minute ago. So, Nick, I guess you win this round. All right, just for fun, let's say you wanted to have it rotate all the time, but when you touch it, it still pops up and then goes away. It'd be really simple, right? Because right now, this rotation is going to stop as soon as this starts, because the state 2 activates scale animation and it kills all the other states. Well, look, all you have to do is this. Just say, look, I want this to immediately pop up here. You can have a state machine with only one thing hooked up to it, right? So let me walk you through it one more time, okay? We start, boom, we're gonna rotate. We're looking for collision. We're also loading a 3D model immediately. We're also loading state 1, but guess what? There's nothing on state 1. All right, now if we have a collision, play a sound, pop up a little bit, and then change the color, load state 2, which is going to scale that thing going away. All right, so let's see it in action, and looks great. It's you know what, I have to say, I think I like that better. It continues to actually rotate as it's going away, and I think that has a nicer effect, but they're both pretty cool, really. So pretty cool. And as you can see, we can get a lot deeper, okay? I mean, we haven't even gotten into the stuff like if longer and around move and the particles and sums and convert and distance. We're going to have a lot of documentation, not immediately. It's going to take a little while. We want to get this out to you guys as soon as possible, but we are going to have documentation on everything. With actions, we have stuff like switches and event observers that you can use on this level, which is super cool. Spawns, defeats, of course, setting color and the animations, position animations, and wake up. Old school wake up is now in here. You click on this and you can change the distance. But what's awesome is once something's awake, you can say, you know what? I want you to play a sound. Once it finally wakes up, change the color and then move it. So you can do a lot more than you could do before. And you could say, only do this once you collide. So as you can see, it's like never ending. It's the most fun I've had creating games by far, because you just can do so much cool stuff. All right, so what about creating nodes from nothing, right? We walked through some and honestly, this is not even that complex. This is like a medium thing. If you guys could see like the Bruce Lee game, I mean, it was really nuts, because we had to set up like state machines for different defeated animations. And this is an interesting thing. You can do that now. For example, you could have a specific defeated animation just when a character falls into water. And of course, if you want inspiration for nodes, then you can check out the different presets. Let's look at Stuck here. This is a little bit different than the other games that I've showed you. If we preview this, we can see it's this very popular style game where you're shooting an arrow into a circle. You'll notice it doesn't actually have a character. Well, we could move one of these up to character if we need to, but we don't really need to since it's a pretty simple game that doesn't follow a path. If I double click the pyramid here, we can see how it works. First, we have a start node. We load the 3D model, which is the pyramid. Of course, we bend that to look more like an arrow. And then we have touch. Now, when you touch the screen, we have a state machine here. It's defaulted to move. This ends up enabling a move node, which is going to move the arrow forward towards the circle. You can see we're also always looking for a collision, and we do this right from start. If we have a collision, we change the state to hit. That means we stop moving it up here. We then defeat the object and then link it, which makes it attached. These nodes are the brain of your game, and you can create some really remarkable things without coding by following the path. And remember, these nodes are all creating smart assets. So you can export any asset and share it with a friend, and in the near future, you'll be able to drag and drop assets right into the asset library so you can access them later. So as you can see, nodes are going to change the way that you create. They're an amazing way to build out totally custom games, and it's never been done like this before. We can't wait to see what you create with them. And of course, if you still want to go deeper, then that is an option too. Just double click any node to instantly dive into level 3, which is scripting. All right, guys, so I think everyone here is well aware that I am not a coder at all, right? So I can't teach you how to program, but what I can do is show you how important scripting is going to be for all of us. Now, for the programmers out there, we are going to have full resources by the time Buildbox 3 is officially released with all the different API functions and more, and you will know exactly how to do all of this stuff. Until then, you can open any node by double-clicking it and seeing what's inside as well to start learning right now. But what I'm going to show you guys is first by loading up this flap preset, and we can see this is a very simple game. We're just flapping and isometric and trying to avoid obstacles, and we're going to do something kind of fun here. So I'm going to solo this scene here, and we're going to delete both of these enemy objects, and we're going to add in a coin from the asset library. Now I'm going to scale this a little bit so we can see it a little bit better, and we'll move it back just a smidge there. There we go. And there we go. Now we can collect a coin. Now I want to do some interesting things with this coin. First off, I want to rotate it. So I'm going to go into the nodes here by double clicking the coin, and I'm going to grab a movement node here, the rotate. Just make sure it starts right on startup. There we go. And we'll go ahead and do this at 300 on the Y. Now when we test this out, it should be rotating, and there we go. It's rotating perfectly. But Nick had a good idea. I showed him this and he said, you know what? We really should have this floating up and down and rotating at the same time. But there's a problem. We didn't really think about that until today. So we don't have a node that does rotating and floating at the same time. Now, luckily, Nick knows a thing or two about Buildbox, and he actually coded one. You can see this is a BB node file, and he named this one Nick's Roto Swing. Now, if we were to double click this rotate, we could see the actual code behind it. As you can see, it's not very difficult. I mean, if you're a coder. Well, we can double click Nick's node here and see it's also very similar, but it has a little bit of additions here. So I'm going to unhook this one, and we'll hook up Nick's. Let's see how it looks. All right, that looks much better, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to get the coin. So as you can see, this scripting is going to be important for all of us because it allows people to create nodes and share them with the community. And it's really easy also to edit any of these nodes if you want to. Let's say you wanted to see how a float worked. You could drag and drop it in here. And then of course you could start copying and pasting and changing around little bits of code and maybe even learn how to code a little bit along the way. So even though most people won't use it, it's going to be an integral part of Buildbox 3. So that's scripting inside of Buildbox. And with presets, the asset library, nodes, and scripting, we've really changed the face and possibilities of Buildbox. And believe it or not, that's just scratching the surface. It would take way too long to show everything now, and there's a ton more coming. Remember, we're just in beta, and please note, this is beta. It does have export. You can make games for iOS and Android, but there's going to be some finalized features coming, some bug fixes, and more. So please be aware of that. And in the final version, we're going to have a massive list of enhancements for 2D. All of the nodes and things that you're seeing here for 3D will be available for 2D. That will be coming after summer. We're going to have multiple betas with beta 2 coming out pretty soon. So we've had a blast working in Buildbox 3.0. It's fast, it's easy, and most importantly, it's fun. And we can't wait to see what you create with it. Speaking of, you're probably wondering the price and availability of Buildbox 3 beta. I'll announce this in a second, but first I want to mention one last very important thing. You've heard me mention content a few times on this event, how we're going to be adding new presets, nodes, and smart assets to the asset library. Well, this is a huge part of our plan for Buildbox 3.0. We're adding this content on a weekly basis for free indefinitely. And unlike before, this is not something that you would just get with major updates. All of these items will be cloud-based, and we'll be updating every Friday with new assets or presets and nodes for you to play with. So Buildbox is becoming more than a game builder. It's becoming a platform, and we're very excited to see what the future holds. So now let's talk about price and availability. This is pretty simple, so it won't take long. Buildbox 3.0 beta is being delivered today at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it comes free with any Buildbox subscription. It will always come with your Buildbox subscription and never cost you more money. If you're already a customer, then you'll receive an email with links and your license key at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time today. It will also show up in your portal at this time. If you are not a customer, you can subscribe at Buildbox today at buildbox.com. Your subscription fee will include both Buildbox 2 and Buildbox 3. And of course, all active subscribers get every update, including the final version when it's released. So ladies and gentlemen, that is Buildbox 3.0 beta. This is the software we've always wanted to create. We want to get it into the hands of as many people as possible. And it's just so much fun to use this. It's the only 3D game creation system that does not require coding to make games. It includes 3 levels of depth for making games, and there has never been a product like this created. So we can't wait to see what you build. Guys, once again, this is Trey Smith with Buildbox. Thank you so much for checking out what we've been working on behind the scenes for a very long time. I hope you enjoyed the event. I can't wait to see what you guys start building with Buildbox 3.0 beta. And again, you can get this at buildbox.com. Thanks a lot, and to all the customers, have fun, guys, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.